Imagine a flickering fire inside a dark cave tens of thousands of years ago. An early human sits by the flames, tearing into a piece of roasted meat. It is a scene we have visualized 1,000 times, but there is one detail we almost always overlook. Did that person reach for a pinch of salt to season their meal? This is what we call the impossible question. Did our ancestors discover the crystalline magic of salt by tasting the dried residue on a coastal rock, or by watching animals congregate around a mineral lick? Or did the organized consumption of salt only truly begin once we stopped roaming and started farming? This is a fundamental mystery of the human story. We can find ancient bones that have survived for millions of years, and we can find stone tools that remain sharp after eons in the dirt. But we almost never find ancient salt. Salt dissolves, disappears, and leaves no trace behind. Today, we are going to dive into the history of salt to find out when we first started seeking it out. The answer depends entirely on what you mean by eating salt. Scientists have recently uncovered a site that contains what might be the world's earliest evidence of organized salt production, and it is significantly older than you might expect. To understand how we got here, we need to look at a timeline that stretches from the first hunter-gatherers to the birth of the very first cities. To answer when we started eating salt, we first have to define what that actually means. There are 3 distinct stages to this behavior. The first stage is simply consuming sodium naturally. Every living creature needs sodium to survive. It keeps our nerves firing and our muscles moving. For the earliest humans, this sodium was already inside the meat and the plants they ate. They were consuming salt without ever seeing a white crystal. The second stage is the deliberate gathering of salt. This is when a group of humans might realize that a specific spring tastes different, or that certain coastal pools leave behind a white crust that makes food taste incredible. They weren't making it yet, they were just finding it. The third and final stage is true production. This is the industrial leap where humans began to concentrate salt for seasoning, food preservation, and trade. While the first stage has been happening since the dawn of our species, it leaves no archaeological footprint. Our investigation today focuses on that transition from finding salt by accident to manufacturing it by design. The reason this mystery is so difficult to solve is that salt is practically invisible to archaeologists. Unlike a pottery shard or a bronze sword, salt is volatile. If it gets wet, it's gone. If it's left in the open air, it crumbles. Individual crystals simply do not survive the passage of thousands of years in the soil. When archaeologists search for evidence of ancient salt, they aren't looking for the salt itself. They are looking for the ghosts of the industry that created it. They look for burned clay, specific types of heating installations, and specialized ceramic salt molds known as briquetage. They look for stone tools found near saline springs that show signs of heavy use. Even then, the evidence is fragile. A massive salt operation from 6,000 years ago might look like nothing more than a pile of broken pottery and ash to the untrained eye. This creates a massive amount of uncertainty. We know people were using it, but the evidence literally vanishes into thin air. It means the oldest salt operation in the world might not look like a factory at all. It might just be a stained patch of earth near a forgotten spring. Before farming, hunter-gatherers didn't need refined table salt. A diet high in fresh red meat provides most of the sodium your body needs. Salt was a hidden ingredient in these early people's meal, not a need. They enjoyed it though. Many groups presumably discovered mineral springs or watched animals use salt licks and realized they were special. Salt may have been used to flavor plants or keep meat from deteriorating for a day or two. They couldn't put up the massive machinery needed to boil hundreds of gallons of water to manufacture a block of salt since they were always moving. Identifying the first time a human purposefully tasted a salt crystal is nearly impossible. We can only rebuild this using reasoning and human biology, but a huge change was coming. What eventually made humans work hours to produce something they used to get for free? The solution is settling down. The Neolithic revolutionized our relationship with the planet. Human diets changed with farming and stable communities. They switched from sodium-heavy game meat to low-salt cereals like wheat and barley. An unexpected biological gap arose. Farmers started managing livestock, and cows and sheep need salt to keep healthy, especially if kept together. Settler communities also had to address lean months. Having a huge harvest or slaughter every year requires preserving the food. Salt enabled food storage. It becomes a survival tool from a simple seasoning. A portable, valued product like salt might be stored or exchanged with a springless village. Salt became the first human preservative technology, not just a flavor. This is the big discovery in our search for ancient human salt usage. In eastern Romania's Poiana Slatinei Lunca, researchers found the oldest evidence of organized salt production in Europe and potentially the world. This site dates to 650 to 5500 BCE. Over 8,000 years ago, mankind made salt. Age and activity scale make this site valuable. It was near natural salt springs. Archaeologists found centuries of people returning to this area. They were exploiting the salty water, not just drinking it. They evaporated brine and collected crystals with fire. This marks the timeline's first big milestone. These folks weren't the first to utilize salt, but they were the first to make it in a way that is still visible today. How did prehistoric people make salt? It was more complicated than leaving a bowl of water in the sun. You needed to master a procedure to make salt for a village. First, you had to gather tons of brine from a spring or ocean. Brine had to be concentrated. Heating water in ceramic containers over enormous hearths was common. Salt crystals formed on the saucepan bottom and sides as the water boiled. Finally, moist salt was scraped and pressed into clay molds to dry into hard, portable cakes. By the middle of the 5th millennium BCE, fired clay containers were more widespread in archaeology. Briquetage is mold fragments. The salt industry's smoking gun is these pottery fragments. When you consider how much firewood and labor it took to boil water for one small block of salt, you realize its value. This organized salt making appeared in several places during the Neolithic period, assuming varied forms depending on the environment. Archaeologists found a 3800 BCE salt working business at Street House in northeast England. A brine storage pit, specialized hearths, and briquetage remnants were unearthed. In other countries, people extracted rock salt from deep down, or evaporated seawater in coastal salt pans using the sun. Whether boiling brine in European woods or scraping salt from Middle Eastern deserts, the goal was to generate a concentrated, transportable resource. This quick growth of salt production illustrates that once people learned to exploit this mineral, it became crucial to every rising civilization. Salt was once called white gold. When people produced and stored salt, the economic and societal effects were huge. Salt extended food storage, helping populations endure harsh winters and droughts. It helped manage larger animal herds, increasing a community's wealth. Most importantly, salt drove regional exchange networks. Controlling a salt spring gave a town huge advantages. Salt might be exchanged for pottery, tools, or exotic materials from hundreds of miles away. Salt helps establish intricate trading lines and increase social rank and wealth disparity. A salt block was a worldwide currency before metal coins or paper money. If they controlled the one item every society needed to thrive, a community without gold could be powerful. When did ancient humans start eating salt? The solution is multi-layered. Sodium consumption dates back to the birth of our existence. Though the evidence is gone, purposefully seeking natural salt likely happened tens of thousands of years ago. We have significant evidence that humans began producing salt in Romania around 650 BCE. Was that the first? Most likely not. It is the oldest surviving evidence. Salt discovery was not a eureka moment. It took time to turn a simple mineral into a valuable resource that could be manufactured, traded, and even fought over. Salt preserved food and connected distant villages, but it also created the first affluent and fortified societies. Sugar, alcohol, spices, or cooking oil. Which should we examine next? Leave a comment below.